Hi everyone, it's Salima again. Nice to see you. I hope everyone had a good weekend. I forgot to mention last time that I think I will be uploading these videos on Tuesdays. That is my goal. But I hope you enjoy the video that you're about to see, because I included a lot of what I consider sort of the agony of the artistic process in it. So you'll see me agonize about that picture quite a bit in the slowed down version, the second part of the tutorial there, because, and I think it's important for people to see that sort of agony that artists go through, because there is a misconception that if art doesn't come out perfect the first time, that basically art is just this thing that spills out of people without effort and without agony. And artists are people who are routinely willing to put themselves in this position of being agonized and not having instant gratification. And, you know, I often think that the thing that separates people who practice art actively from everybody else is just a tolerance, like a high tolerance for that, for the pitfalls of the process, for that agony, for rejection, for the not getting things perfect right away and just hammering away at something. So it's a very specific character trait, but I think it can be learned. I think art can be learned, and I think if people think of it as a process versus a product, it can be easier for people to grasp. But I have people so often say to me, you know, if I'd gotten started when I was younger, I could be somewhere now, but it's too late for me now, and all of that. And I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I really think anyone can start at any time, and it doesn't mean that you'll enjoy it, but I think it's worth trying it to see if you enjoy it and if you get anything out of it, because I think it can be this wonderful place where you can really lose yourself and access a part of your brain and heart that we don't often get to in everyday life. So that's a long way of saying that is why I included this sort of, the part I was agonizing about in this picture. I thought it was important for people to see. And also it's kind of funny the way that artists are, I mean, I think it's funny, and probably to everyone else it looks like, why would you guys do this to yourselves? Why would you put yourselves in this position? But just to kind of normalize the process for people, and to kind of show you that what the things that artists do agonize about, like if you break it down and become granular about it and really look at the nuts and bolts, it's not hard to understand. I think it can seem mystifying when it's one big painting or picture all at once, but if you break down the individual elements, it's a science like any other drawing is. So anyway, enough rambling from me. I hope you enjoy this, and I will see you in a little bit.
Okay, guys, so let's talk about this. All right, so the first thing is that I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do more architecture because that's so not my strong suit at all. Um, I don't think in terms of buildings, I don't gravitate toward drawing them. So, to challenge myself, I decided to try to do more. So, I started off with a tea house because I've had this image in my mind for a while of this tea house on a hill and that somebody would come across like walking through sort of an alpine area, like a beautiful remote area. And you're, you just come across this beautiful tea house. So, and another thing is that I wanted to make sure that I had enough negative space in the picture, meaning, meaning that I wanted to make sure the eye had a place to rest. Because if you go to my website and look at some of the pictures, you'll see that a lot of them are very busy, meaning there's a lot of detail all over the picture in every sort of square inch of the picture. And for some of them, I guess that works. But if I were to go back and redo a lot of them, I would probably make sure that there was more blank space and negative space in each of them. So just places where there isn't much going on in the picture so that the eye can rest a little better. So I made a commitment to myself for that with this picture. And then I started to get really mad at myself right around this point because I didn't like the way the blues were contrasting each other, the blue in the water and the blue in the sky. So this is sort of where my agony started. And another quick disclaimer, I want to just say quickly that when I say agony, I actually do worry that people think I mean like that I'm romanticizing this notion that artists have to be tortured to create, which I don't believe at all. I don't believe that for a second. And I actually think it's dangerous to believe that. I think it's um, just really detrimental to people for several reasons. So I don't mean actual agony. I don't mean actual genuine life-threatening misery. What I mean by agony is I just mean like if you have the privilege and the opportunity to be creating and you want your project to turn out well, you go through this a little bit of self-imposed torture trying to get it to turn out right. But I definitely don't think that artists have to be tortured to create. I think they obviously a lot of art is born out of life experience. And there's so many artists that disprove this notion, so many super talented people who are living balanced, fulfilled lives and create ingenious things. So anyway, when I say agony, now you know what I mean. So anyway, yes, in that sense, I was agonizing at this point, wanting to make sure that I just pulled this off correctly the way I saw it in my mind. And I was like starting to sink a little bit, like when I feel like I've lost a picture, meaning I don't know, sometimes I get to a point where I'm like, oh my God, this is the point of no return. I'm never going to be able to pull this off the way I want. And at that point, I'll sink inside a little bit. And I usually keep going anyway. Um, and sometimes I pull it off, sometimes I salvage it, and sometimes I don't. And here I was just like, oh my God, am I losing it? So I was starting to get really mad, largely because I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I knew something was, and it was just really bugging me. And at this point, I believed it was color, that it had to do with color. I knew it also had to do with composition, um, meaning the placement of things in the picture, but I didn't really understand what at this point. So I was just kind of eyeballing it, trying to figure it out. And so then I was adding contrast to certain places, which really does help. Like when you deepen, meaning when I say add contrast, I just mean deepen and darken certain areas and make others lighter, just making the contrast between things more dramatic. And that always draws the eye towards a certain object. So obviously, I wanted the focus to be the tea house, but I still couldn't figure out what was wrong at this point. Um, so, but at the same time, I also want to stress what's interesting is even though I was in agony, I always love doing this so much. Like I was enjoying it so much. And I always do. I love it because I always do feel sort of transported into a picture when I'm painting. Like and I wonder, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a pretentious artist, which I don't mean to sound like at all, but like I wonder if in this sense it is similar to what method actors go through when they have to really sort of inhabit a person and project and inject themselves into a character. That's kind of how this works a little bit, at least for me with pictures. Like if I'm, I love it. Like I feel like I can smell the alpine area. I can see the tea house. I can imagine what it's like to come upon this little bridge. So it's so much fun and so joyful and so wonderful, even if it's agonizing. Okay, so I was still not sure how to fix it, feeling a little better about the contrast I was adding, but not 100% better. And just couldn't grasp it. And at this point, again, in my head, I was still blaming it on color. I was still thinking maybe if there were more turquoise in the water, maybe that would fix it. But at the same time, I was having so much fun adding the little detail, especially to the tea house. And it was interesting there was one point where maybe it went too fast for you to tell, but where I had more of the shingles actually painted on the roof of the tea house, and that didn't work. It just didn't work. It was too heavy. It overloaded the picture. So I ended up blotting a lot of it up, which maybe we'll do a video at one point on blotting and how much that can actually be used as a technique in watercolor. So I was adding a lot of contrast to the things in the foreground, like the stones, and see where the picture is right now. It honestly might have been okay if I'd left it here and just added some turquoise, because at this point, I liked where the contrast in the picture was. But this will come into play when I show you the finished version. You'll see what I'm talking about. There we go. Then I started feeling better. As soon as I started injecting some turquoise as soon as I started to add a little turquoise to the water, I started to feel relieved. Like, okay, maybe this is all I need. And then there's always also the fear of overdrawing. Like sometimes you overdraw when you obsess over something for too long and you realize it was fine and would have been so much better if you'd left it like 5 steps ago. I'm very guilty of doing that because I have a tendency to do a lot of contrast, a lot of deepening and shading and contrast. And I do overdo it for sure sometimes, for sure. So I actually like the place that the picture's at right now. It's interesting rewatching this. I like where it's at right now. Whoop, there was a color change there, guys. I'm sorry. I'm aware of that. So I like this. I like the fact that there's so much contrast, that the contrast is really heavy under the bridge in the water. And towards the bottom of the picture, I felt like that was really nice and complementary to the tea house. So I probably could have left it alone right here. And then you'll see I sort of expanded some of the contrast along the bottom in the water. And that's what I ended up having to kind of pull back a little bit. I was still really furious about the bridge. I was just furious. I wanted to do like a little wood gradient on there that's so fun to do. But again, I didn't want the eye to totally be drawn there. So I thought maybe adding more turquoise would help. And you'll see in a minute. The finished image, I ended up doing something that I need to really pause and think about because it's going to save me a lot of time and agony in future pictures. So at this point, I was really starting to feel the picture again, and it was such a beautiful feeling to be able to feel it again and to be able to think, okay, like I may be able to salvage this. And you'll see in a second what I did to shift things around. And it was a really great feeling to be able to do that. So, okay, here we are. You'll see in a second. This is it. So there's the more finished image. So I'm still working on it. I'm not done. I'm not done at all. I like it better now. But basically what's happening here is that I was really happy that I finally figured out what I had done wrong so that I can fix it in the future. So basically what I did with this picture is I faded some of the stuff along the bottom left, faded some of the contrast with the stones, all of that, so that it sort of just like bleeds and blends and sort of falls down. And then I kept the contrast, most of the sharp contrast down to the right. And I thought that was so important. I realized that is so important. Like basically it just means that essentially the areas of contrast are just diagonal to each other in the picture. So that the eye, it's just so much more pleasing to the eye. It's so much better and adds so much to a picture. If you can do that from the beginning, if you just remember to do that from the beginning, and it can be very confusing when you're drawing, like you don't know what's wrong. And I think a lot of what was wrong for me with the bridge actually had more to do with that. So you can see now, as long as I fade what's on the left and sort of deepen what's on the right, and then just do a few more things, because I'm not finished. I don't think this is where I want it yet, but I do think it's a big improvement. So I'm going to keep working on it. And I'm so happy I was able to salvage this one. I was worried because I love this, the initial version. So yeah, still working on it, and we'll hopefully make it even better. So yeah.
Hi y'all, welcome back. Welcome back, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed hearing my agony up close and personal, and that it gives you inspiration to try your own stuff and to realize that really that agony isn't the end of a picture. And once you sort of learn to love the practice, I think it's about learning to love the practice, then it just becomes part of it. And even the agony has something endearing and essential to it. So I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it, and I will see you back here next week with what will likely be a special Christmas episode. Thanks. Bye.